All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Heidi McIndoe. I am a registered dietitian. And if you joined me a few weeks ago, we talked about preserving food. And so today we are going to be using some of those preserved foods, but also in case you didn't join me, you can totally make these recipes anyways. But I'm going to get going because I am being really, I can't think of the word I'm being. I have a mental block, but anyways, I'm trying to make 3 recipes. So we are going to get hustling. Um, so our first recipe is going to be a fresh tomato salsa. So I am using fresh tomatoes because I didn't have canned tomatoes. But if you happen to have made preserved tomatoes or canned tomatoes, based on my last presentation, you can totally use those. That's sort of what this recipe is supposed to be. But like I said, I didn't have those. So use those. Or if you're like me, you can use little grape tomatoes. So we are starting with, and I have a little chopper to make it easy. I know a ton of people have these little hand choppers. If you don't, it's fine. You can just use a knife and a cutting board, and chop them up, you know, chop them up and mix them as small as you like. So we are starting with, let's get that out of the way. We're going to start with our onion and just basically, I'm making half the recipe because right now we don't need that much fresh salsa and I don't want it to go bad. So we're putting, this would be a small onion if indeed we are making the full batch. Then we have a jalapeno. So the full recipe calls for a full jalapeno. I am going to use a half a jalapeno. And if you don't like things spicy, what you want to do, I'm not even going to touch them because I don't have gloves on. You're going to want to cut out this rib and these seeds, and that takes away a lot of the heat. So get rid of those. But you know what? My husband's going to eat this salsa, and he's got no problem with heat. So we're throwing him in there. If you like cilantro, which I do not, I think it tastes like soap, so I'm skipping it. But if you like cilantro, go ahead and throw a half a cup of cilantro in here as well. Then we need basically a couple tablespoons of lemon juice, which is the juice of 1 lemon. So we're going to squeeze a half a lemon in here. That just sort of gives a little nice bright little flavor. We are going to throw a pinch of salt in here. And I hate to say, I'm using the jarred garlic today because the garlic looked terrible at the grocery store this week. So I always have this jarred garlic. It basically calls for 2 garlic cloves in the full recipe. So I'm going to throw 1 in there. Yeah, it was just nasty looking. So nice to have that stuff handy. And then we just put it in our chopper, or like I said, get the big cutting board out and chop all this stuff whole and then mix it. But we are going to go. Give this a few spins. I don't like my stuff super chunky, so I've sort of gone a little bit on the smaller side, but you. If you like it big and chunky, that's fine. Then I just bought some grape tomatoes, so I am going to put about half of them in my bowl. So again, if you ended up taking tomatoes from your garden and you made canned like canned tomatoes or chopped up tomatoes and canned them, preserved them, go ahead and throw them in here. Then you can have fresh salsa year round. But, so I'm doing the tomatoes in 2 bits. Yeah, this is from this chopper. It's from Amazon. No, I'm sorry. QVC. My mom's huge QVC. That's where we got this. I love it. So I'm doing the tomatoes in 2 bits because we're going to chop up the first bunch a little finer. So we actually have a sauce in here. So that's what our salsa looks like right now, very oniony. And now we're going to throw in the rest of our tomatoes and give it, again, you top it with your knife, if you have a little mini food processor, whatever you have. This is just a little handheld one. I'm out here on the patio. I don't have a lot of electricity. So this is probably a little, I think I overdid the lemon juice, but that's okay. And it's a little chunkier than I would like, but that's, yeah, it definitely over squeezed my lemon. So this is our fresh tomato salsa. Get yourself some fish tacos, get yourself some tortilla chips. I will probably end up using the rest of the tomatoes and onion to balance out my lemon juice. So don't do what I did, measure the lemon juice. So there we go. So there is recipe number 1, using fresh or preserved tomatoes, whatever you have. So, okay, that's pretty good. That was my fastest recipe. So that's pretty good. I got that one out of the way. All right. So now we are going to, yeah, we're just going to dump all that in there and make more. So now we're going to make an easy cucumber salad. So if you went ahead and made yourself some either pickled onions or pickled cucumbers, made cucumbers, that can be your base for this salad, the pickled onions and the pickled cucumbers. We're just going to add a couple more ingredients. If you don't have pickled onions and or pickled cucumbers, pickles, I guess that's what they are, then we are going to go ahead and show you what you can do with fresh ones. So this is just a mandolin. I am terrible with my knife skills. I shouldn't say that. I'm not terrible. I'm just not that good. And I can't slice things really thinly. So with the mandolin, you can get, I'll show you, you can get nice thin slices. But again, this can totally be done with a cutting board and a knife. The first thing I'm going to do is actually peel my cucumber. If you happen to like English cucumbers, you don't have to peel those ones, but most of us aren't growing, I don't think we're growing English cucumbers in our garden. So I'm using the, just traditional regular cuke. And I suppose you don't have to peel it. There's a lot of nutrients in the peel, but the salad just works up a little bit better if there's no peel, and then you don't get that little bitterness. All right, so I'm going to cut off the end just so I have a flat end. All right, now watch this. You ready? So I just go like this, and I am able to get these super, super paper thin cukes, which, like I said, I could never do that with a knife. And I do it right into my bowl. We're going to do the same thing with our onion. So everything is equal thickness. I meant to start this and I'm going to shred cucumber in a bit, and I meant to shred that a little bit ahead of time. So you guys didn't have to, basically it's like watching paint dry. But now's an excellent time for questions if anybody has any. Let's see, I see some conversations here. Hold on. Why is this? Hold on. I'm gonna X that out. There we go. Yeah, this is a mandolin. I'm not sure. There's lots of comments here about lots of comments. I'm not sure what all that is. Okay. Okay. So anyways, so we're slicing the cucumber. Almost done, almost done. Sorry, camera's shaking because my chair is shaking. Yeah, it does look like somebody extra got into our conversation. I was trying to be nice and see all the comments. Let's see if I can block them. Well, No, don't know. All right, so we got our little nub here. And red onion. Red onion is really nice. Uh, I'm not a huge raw onion eater, but I like red onion. I think it's not quite as sharp. So the full recipe, again, I'm making a half a recipe here. So the full recipe calls for 2 cukes, and it calls for half a large red onion. Today I've got, here we go, a small or half of a small one. And this, oh, it's my favorite, slicing onions on the mandolin. Look at this, all these little paper little rings here. Just like that. This, okay. Put it aside. So that's most of the work we've got. Excuse my reach. So we have our thinly sliced onions, our thinly sliced cukes. And the next thing we're going to do is put our simple dressing on here. So again, if you made pickles and onions, chances are you already have vinegar in there, and that's going to be one of the ingredients. So I'm just still seeing if I can, let's see. Nope. Okay. So you don't need the vinegar. If you're using fresh, we're going to want to start with some vinegar. So we are, for the full recipe, we want a 1/4 cup of vinegar. So we're just going to need 2 tablespoons of vinegar. I love this little shot glass. It makes measuring liquids, so small amounts of liquid, so easy. All right, so 2 tablespoons of vinegar. Then we're going to use a pinch of sea salt. And a little pinch of pepper. And full recipe calls for a full tablespoon of honey. So now the salt, the pepper, the honey, these you're going to want to add to if you already have the pickled item. So we only need about a 1/2 tablespoon of honey. I think I would have learned on my lemon fiasco earlier, but I'm still not measuring. So what we're going to do is just pour this all over. We should do it this way, huh? All over our items. Give them a little stir. Now, what you want to do next is let this sit in the fridge about 20 minutes. And what's going to happen is some water, because of that salt, some water is going to leach out a little bit, some fluids. And you're going to want to drain that before you serve it. That way you don't make a soggy salad. But we're going to do this, like I said, chill it for 20 minutes, drain the water, and then we're just going to add, I'm adding chives. If you'd rather, you could add some dill, if you happen to like dill, but we want about a tablespoon of fresh chives sprinkled on top. And voila, yummy, yummy cucumber salad. All right, so boom, just like that, 2 recipes done, which is good because my next recipe is my time-consuming one. So we're going to get a few things out of our way that we don't need. So our next recipe, what we are going to be making is actually zucchini bread. So the zucchini bread is useful if you have fresh zucchini, but one of the preservation methods that we talked about the last time was freezing. And freezing shredded zucchini is a great option because you can use it like for muffins, for zucchini pancakes, or this yummy zucchini bread that we're making. All right, I got a question here. The salad looks good. What suggests to serve it with? So I would serve that. I think that is delicious with a nice piece of grilled fish or some grilled chicken. We grill a lot in the summer. So just anything, even a burger, you know what? It would be delicious actually if you had like an open face burger and put it as like the topping on the burger even. You could add that once it marinates with the dressing. You could put that on a bed of greens and maybe add some tuna or just, some sort of protein to it to make just a full salad. You could add beans to it if you wanted a totally vegetarian salad. So yeah, it's just a nice light, bright salad with that vinegar and the sugar. You could also use agave if you didn't want to use honey, but I think that's delicious. One thing, you know what, I also want to show you before we start the zucchini bread. One of the things I talked about also was drying things. So in my backyard, I grow oregano. So this is oregano. What I did is a couple weeks ago, I cut it and I just laid it here on my patio table. And now it is totally dry. So now all I do is I pinch off these little leaves and crumble it. I want to see it good here. And I have got fresh dried oregano. So I actually have a jar in my pantry that it's labeled garden fresh oregano. And once I crumble this all up, then I'm going to have my fresh garden oregano for the winter, which is awesome. It usually lasts me about the winter. So we've talked about pickling things, we've talked about canning, we've talked about freezing, we've talked about drying. So we've covered all the preservation methods here. So let's get going on our zucchini bread so we don't miss out on that. I have a lot of doodads here for that one. All right, so we are going to start with some flour. So if you wanted, I'm using all white flour today. You can do a mix of whole wheat and white. I would not do all whole wheat. It will be too heavy and dry. But you could totally use, I would probably do not more than half and half. I wouldn't do more than a half of the whole wheat. You could use a white whole wheat. You could also, if you use, now I've not done this before, but if you successfully have used gluten-free flours, this recipe should work with a gluten-free flour. But like I said, I've not done it before, so I can't speak from experience. So we have a question. What is the ratio between measurements for fresh versus dried? So it's about a third of dried. So if you have a recipe, okay, so we're going 3 cups of flour. So if you have a recipe that calls for a teaspoon of dried herbs, you're going to want to use about a tablespoon of fresh. Vice versa, if you have a recipe that calls for a tablespoon of fresh, you want a teaspoon of dried. Now, the trick when you're switching out dried and fresh herbs, dried herbs you want to add near the beginning of the recipe because you want, assuming it's something you're cooking, a sauce or something like that, you want the heat and you want to sort of, I like to crush them in the palm of my hand. You need time and heat and other things to let those essential oils, those flavorful oils really come out. So dried herbs always go in the beginning of the recipe. If you are using fresh herbs, they will, sort of not work so well if they cook for a long time. They don't look good. They don't add that same flavor because the volatile oils are volatile oils, no, the flavored oils in them. It's right there. It doesn't need to be released. It's sort of right there on the tip. So fresh herbs you want to add at the end, just like a sprinkle on top. All right, so not yet. We are mixing all of our dry ingredients. So we have started with the 3 cups of flour. We are going to go with a teaspoon of salt, and somewhere there we go, measuring spoons. You are very welcome. We want a teaspoon of salt. Oops, move this over a smidge. Now, if you are trying to watch your sodium, you could totally leave the salt out. When I first became a dietitian, I changed all my recipes to no salt. Nothing had salt in it. I've since learned that a little bit of salt isn't the end of the world and it can enhance flavors. Um, we are adding a teaspoon of salt, but we are making 2 loaves of bread, and each loaf is going to have, I don't know, maybe 10 slices, something like that. So we're really getting not that much sodium per serving in this recipe. But like I said, if you would be able to feel more comfortable leaving it out, totally fine. We are also going to add a teaspoon of baking soda and a teaspoon of baking powder. I want to make sure. My original plan was to have this recipe, and I said, no, what the heck, we'll make the full recipe. All right, so we're done with that. And so that was the baking soda. This is the baking powder. And then we're going to add some cinnamon and nutmeg. So we've got 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. You really like cinnamon, go ahead and add up to a tablespoon, which would be 3 teaspoons. You don't like it, use less, skip it. We're going to add a half a teaspoon of nutmeg. Don't like nutmeg, leave it out. Use cloves would be good, I think. So whatever sort of, I think the seasonal, those fall seasonal spices go really well with this. So whatever spices you like. So this is what I love, grinding fresh nutmeg. But again, this is one of those instances where you're not going to get the benefit of the freshly grated nutmeg, just like the fresh herbs. So go ahead and use the dried stuff. It works. All right, let's make sure I got everything. Flour, salt, soda, cinnamon, nutmeg. Okay, so we are going to just whisk this around a little to combine it. So when you're making anything with flour, once you add the liquids to it, that's when things start to get tough when you overmix them, things like that. So take advantage of this dry mixture and really get those spices and the leavening and all that mixed well, so that all you have to do once you add the dry ingredients is really mix it until it's just not dry and wet anymore, till it's just combined. You know that you've got all these ingredients well dispersed. All right, so next we are adding, well, darn if I didn't mean to bring a measuring cup out here. You know what did we do with this one? Oh no, we can't use that one. That one had vinegar in it. Okay, so we are going to go with a half a cup of canola oil. So you're going to see me do something I tell people not to do. Don't use dry measuring cups for liquid ingredients. You just don't get as good of a measure. It's better to use the liquid for the liquid. You know what I should do? No, I'm good. But you know what? The liquid measure cup is in the kitchen. So that's the way. So we're going to go right to the tippy top. So one thing I did to make this recipe a little healthier, I guess, is I swapped some of the oil for applesauce. I'm not a fan of 100% swap because I really think that applesauce and no oil has a reason. I feel, and this is a personal preference, you may disagree with me. Applesauce, if it's all applesauce, you end up with a gooey, spongy kind of, not enjoyable to me, kind of baked good. But I don't see a problem with doing, a half and half. So I did the half oil, half applesauce. We are going to do some sugar. How many people about sugar on their laps? So again, so this is 1 3/4 cup of sugar here. So it's a lot of sugar, but are you eating this 3 times a day, the whole loaf at a time? No, it's a fun little, I'd say could be a healthy dessert because we got all those veggies in there, right? So we have 1 3/4 cup of sugar. You can always do a little bit less. It'll be a little less sweet. I've actually, from when I got this recipe, I have toned down the sugar. It actually had more than that. So we have the applesauce. So we need the eggs, the vanilla. So we need about a tablespoon of vanilla. I never measure vanilla because I love it so much. A lot of vanilla. So what I would do, had I remembered to bring the liquid measuring cup out here, when I measured the oil, I would have then added all these other ingredients to the oil and combined it that way. That way it's well combined and I'm adding it to the well combined dry mixture. That's not happening today. So sorry about that, all you ingredients. All right, and now we need 3 eggs. And just if you decide to make half of this recipe, which I did the other day, use 2 eggs. I normally tell people to use 1.5 eggs, and that would just be 2 tablespoons of scrambled up egg is a half an egg. But I decided not to do it for this particular recipe, and it worked out fine. All right, so now we have everything we need in our zucchini bread, except, what are we missing? Our zucchini. So I'm going to give this a little mix. I want it all ready. This overhead camera is so cool. You guys can see everything I do. So we are just going to mix it up. All right. And now get your questions ready because in a minute, it's going to be like paint drying again as I shred up the zucchini. All right. I just want to make sure I get all that dry stuff from the bottom. Oh, you know what I meant to shoot? Also in my kitchen. I wanted to bring you the loaf out that I had made to show you. However, I will tell you, I made this on Sunday or Monday, I can't remember now. And I only have 1 slice left because my family devoured it. So don't feel that bad. You're not getting to see the whole loaf. You'd only get to see a slice anyways, but I really wanted to show you. All right, now we're going to get to our zucchini. Oh, you know what I'm going to add before I do that? Because I don't want to forget. If you like nuts in your zucchini bread, awesome. Go ahead and throw about a cup of nuts in here. I hate nuts in my zucchini bread. So I am throwing raisins in here. So about a cup of raisins. What I normally do when I'm cooking with raisins is I soak them in hot water, but I just got these from Trader Joe's the other day and they are super moist and they do not need any soaking in water. So that's about a cup. I hope you guys like my high-tech measuring skills here. All right, so we'll do that. Now we get to do our paint drying, watching zucchini be shredded. So I hope you guys have some questions. We are gonna get that knife and cut the end off. And so the recipe calls for, well, you know what? This is probably good for 2. I had this much zucchini for my 1 loaf the other day and a bit much. But I think for our 2 loaves, we're going to be fine. All right, here we go. We are shredding zucchini. So if you have a little food processor shredder, awesome. Go ahead and use that. If you don't, get out the old-fashioned box grater. I just have this. There we go. This little worked better the other day. Right. Oh my gosh, and our time is almost up. So in case anybody has to leave, we are going to be popping this shredded zucchini into the bowl, just mixing it. I am putting this into 2 8x5-inch loaf pans that are greased and floured, or I actually have a silicone one that I don't need to grease and flour. And we're baking this at 350 for roughly 40 to 60 minutes. It depends on everybody's oven. You do want to check it. I recommend checking it after 40. The other one I cooked the other day, I cooked at 40, probably should have done 45. I thought it was done, but there was a little bitty gooey spot in the middle that I was not loving. So I'm going to do this one about 45. So, and zucchini, unlike the cucumber, No need to peel it unless you have people in your house that don't want to see green bits in their quick breads. You could always, you know, peel it and then call it banana bread. Whatever works. All right, so I am gonna peel this whole zucchini. I mean, shred it, but I just wanted to get some of that in there. So yeah, any questions? I feel bad that we're running over. I'm usually so good about my time, but you did get 3 recipes, so that's pretty good. Let's see. I'm glad I showed you the oregano before I ran out of time. Oh, you know what I just thought of? I could have done this on my mandolin too. The mandolin has a feature where you can do the slice and then has little blades come up. Didn't think about that. Little blades come up to do the shred as well. If you were to make this into muffins, would you change the temp and bake time? So I would if I made muffins, I would probably increase, I would experiment with either 350 or possibly turn it up to 320, sorry, 375. And then I would start checking at like the 18-minute mark, probably. You can always add more time, but you can't take away time. I'm guessing they're going to be done in, you know what, check after yeah, 18 minutes is fine. I'm guessing they'd be done in about 20 to 25 minutes, but yeah, start at that 18-minute mark. Okay, so we got a little yucky spot on our zucchini, so we're gonna avoid that. There you go, pretty good. So now, yeah, this would be really fun with muffins. You know, if I was making muffins, I might also make a little like a little brown sugar crumble topping. Again, you know, obviously that adds more sugar. So it depends on if you're having it as a treat dessert or if you are having it as more of a breakfast. I might skip the sugar if this was going to be like a breakfast kind of item, the extra sugar. And now we're just going to mix it well. Again, I say well, we want it well mixed, but not over mixed because we don't want tough muffins and bread. So we'll just give it a stir. Any other questions? I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you make some of these recipes. There we go. Oh, I got a little patch of dry on the bottom. All right, this is looking pretty good. I don't see any parts without zucchini. I don't see any dry bits of flour. Oh, there's a little dry bit. I don't see any hunk of egg. Those are the things I look for when I'm mixing. We know we combine all those dry ingredients well. All right, and now, so if you heard me in the beginning, I said my original plan was going to be to make one of these. So I only brought one loaf pan out on the patio with me. So we're going to try and dump about half of this in here. And then I will go grab another loaf pan for the rest. That looks like half, right? Yeah. And there we go. So voila. I cannot cook it. Like my original plan was going to be through the magic of television. I was going to put it under the counter and have the full loaf to show you, but my family took care of that plan. All right, but those are our 3 recipes. We have fresh tomato salsa somewhere. We have a cucumber salad that I can't reach right now. And we have yummy zucchini bread. This really, really, really came out delicious the other day. So I hope you guys give it a try. Like I said, any other questions or comments? I'll hang out here for a minute. Otherwise, have a great rest of your Tuesday. You are very welcome.